What does it mean to have knowledge of the reasons of one's action? Too little attention has been paid to this question because, unfortunately, we have torn into two what is really an inseparable whole, man. We have distinguished between the knower and the doer and have left out of account precisely the one who matters most of all, the knowing doer. The summary for that is, in order to determine whether knowledge of modem can influence actions, we must consider the one who acts out of knowledge. Paragraph 10. It is said that man is free when he is controlled only by his reason, and not by his animal passions. Or again, that to be free means to be able to determine one's life and action by purposes and deliberate decisions. And that is summarized as such. A reasoned act is assumed to be a free act. Paragraph 11. Nothing is gained by assertions of this sort, for the question is just whether reason, purposes, and decisions exercise the same kind of compulsion over a man as his animal passions. If without my cooperation a rational decision emerges in me with the same necessity with which hunger and thirst arise, then I must need obey it, and my freedom is an illusion. Reasoning can be an unconscious act. That is the summarized paragraph. Paragraph 12. Another form of expression runs, to be free does not mean to be able to want as one wills, but to be able to do as one wills. This thought has been expressed with great clearness by the poet-philosopher Robert Hammerling. And this is the quote: "Man can certainly do as he wills, but he cannot want as he wills, because his wanting is determined by motives. He cannot want as he wills? Let us consider these phrases more closely. Have they any intelligible meaning? Freedom of will would then mean being able to want without ground, without motive. But what does wanting mean if not to have grounds for doing, or trying to do this rather than that? To want something without ground or motive would be to want something without wanting it. The concept of wanting cannot be divorced from the concept of motive. Without a determining motive, the will is an empty faculty. Only through the motive does it become active and real. It is therefore quite true that the human will is not free, inasmuch as its direction is always determined by the strongest motive. But on the other hand, it must be admitted that it is absurd, in contrast with this unfreedom, to speak of a conceivable freedom of the will, which would consist in being able to want what one does not want." Back to Steiner now. Here again, actually, that was paragraph 12, so I'll just read the summary of paragraph 12. We are not the authors of our will, Hammerling states, as it is determined by the strongest motive. So our motives, according to Hammerling, drive us. Paragraph 13. Here again, only motives in general are mentioned, without taking into account the difference between unconscious and conscious motives. If a motive affects me, and I am compelled to act on it because it proves to be the strongest of its kind, then the thought of freedom ceases to have any meaning. How should it matter to me whether I can do a thing or not, if I am forced by the motive to do it? The primary question is not whether I can do a thing or not when a motive has worked upon me, but whether there are any motives except such as impel me with absolute necessity. If I am compelled to want something, then I may well be absolutely indifferent as to whether I can also do it. And if through my character or through circumstances prevailing in my environment, a motive is forced on me which to my thinking is unreasonable, then I should even have to be glad if I could not do what I want. And the summary for 13: is there freedom of will, or are all motives compelling? That's the question to differentiate. Is there freedom of will, or are all motives compelling? Again, he brings home the point of we have to start with unconscious and conscious motives. And that's sort of part when you're becoming aware of your motives is part of it. I'll go back to 14 now. The question is not whether I can carry out a decision once made, but how the decision comes about within me. That's pretty short paragraph. So the summary is, what matters is how a resolve arises within me. Paragraph 15 is a little longer. So what distinguishes man from all other organic beings arises from his rational thinking. Activity he has in common with other organisms. Nothing is gained by seeking analogies in the animal world to clarify the concept of freedom as applied to the actions of human beings. Modern science loves such analogies. When scientists have succeeded in finding among animals something similar to human behavior, they believe they have touched on the most important question of the science of man. To what misunderstandings this view leads is seen, for example, in the book The Illusion of Free Will by P. Ree, where the following remark on freedom appears. This is a quote here. It is easy to explain why the movement of a stone seems to us necessary, while the volition of a donkey does not. The causes which set the stone in motion are external and visible, while the causes which determine the donkey's volition are internal and invisible. Between us and the place of their activity, there is the skull of the ass. The determining causes are not visible, and therefore thought to be non-existent. The volition, it is explained, is indeed the cause of the donkey's turning round, but it is itself unconditioned. It is an absolute beginning. This is back to Steiner. Here again, human actions in which there is a consciousness of the motives are simply ignored, for Reed declares that between us and the place of their activity there is the skull of the ass. To judge from these words, it has not dawned on Ree that there are actions, not indeed of the ass, but of the human beings, in which between us and the action lies the motive that has become conscious. Ree demonstrates his blindness once again a few pages further on when he says, "We do not perceive the causes by which our will is determined, hence we think it is not causally determined at all." And the summary for that is, though Paul Ree states that motives are hidden, Steiner says Ree has utterly disregarded the differences between conscious and unconscious motives. This is paragraph 16. But enough of examples which prove that many argue against freedom without knowing in the least what freedom is. I think Steiner's getting pissy, but that's just summarized as such. Many argue against freedom without knowing in the least what freedom is. So we didn't really summarize. That was not hard to summarize. So you got a freebie there. There's just 3 more paragraphs to go, and we'll be done chapter 1, my friends, so bear with me.